Welcome to the West Coast Operation Integrated Training Program. And today we're going to talk about HAZOP and process safety. And everyone's supposed to have 3 handouts. And one is showing all the slides. The other one is a worksheet. It's called the HAZOP worksheet. And also there's an example that we're going to work on the last session of the presentation, and also please remember to sign in at the sign-in sheet down that desk as well. I'll go ahead and first is my name is Ray Wong, and I work at the New Zealand job, and my office location is at 222 Huntington Drive in Monrovia, and my phone number is 626-803-9035 if you need to get hold of me, or you can email me, and basically raywong@worleyparsons.com. I guess we'll start with safety moment, and summer is coming, and I thought we're going to talk about summer safety. I'm sure the items listed here people are well aware of, but I guess for safety, it's never hurt to remind people one more time. And I guess number one is be sensible about sun exposure. Just always remember when you go out, remember to apply the sunscreen on, and also wear a hat or a long sleeve shirt. So it'll be better than short sleeve. Minimize the sun exposure. And I guess when you're young, you don't realize, actually, nowadays I've met several people who actually had some really bad sun damage. One actually had cancer growing on the back and had an operation. So now he changed his attitudes towards sun completely. When he go out to golfing, he wear long sleeve shirts, and he wear even gloves and hats and everything. It is better to start your protection earlier. And number 2 item is watch out for high temperature and humidity. I guess when you are out working hard or having fun, you probably don't realize you've been outside for too long, and there are high temperature conditions. So it's always good to take a rest once in a while and drink plenty of water. And number 3 is I guess it's over here is the bike springs, and I guess summertime is the time when people do a lot of outdoor activities like rollerblading or biking. Always remember to wear the proper safety gear, like helmet or like protection for your knees and joints. Number 4 item is be wise with water. I guess people like to go into the water, either to the pool or to the beach. Just remember, play the safe and watch out for each other if you see someone in trouble and you're not sure about your swimming skill, and try and find other help. And number 5 is be aware of bugs and mosquitoes. And I guess we all heard about the West Nile disease, and you never know. So number 6 is find out for the food poisoning. Summertime is the time when people go out to do barbecuing, picnicking. Just remember the food safety. Just make sure to keep the food fresh and cook the meat well, so don't have any food poisoning problem. I guess that's for the safety moment. And we're going to talk about next. We're going to talk about the agenda for today's HAZOP process safety. And number 1 item is we're going to have an overview and talk about the key terminologies that we should know. And have a little history about how HAZOP originated, and also talk about some major process industry incidents. I'm sure we're all working in this industry. We probably all know one or two. And then we'll talk about the regulations that's actually the OSHA and the EPA regulations actually require us to do the process safety reviews and all that. And after that, I think it's probably after the first overview session, we'll take a short break, and the second session we'll talk about the actual HAZOP and how the process of HAZOP and all other related issues. Then that will be another break point. Then afterwards we'll have a group exercise and trying to do a small HAZOP. And I guess we'll separate into several groups and do it ourselves. Then at the end, we're going to do the same exercise together and see if we identified all the safety hazard in the process. Then we'll have a wrap up. I guess we all know Worley Parsons, our safety slogan is zero harm. And we always start with meetings or any kind of conference calls or like our all hands meetings start with safety minutes as well. The reason is not only safety is important, it is required by the law, and also safety is actually good for the business. And the reasoning is it retains the value of trained personnel and the physical assets. And this is accomplished by having fewer injuries at the workplace, and that's to our workers, and then also minimize the damage to the facility and the equipment. And also it helps inspire employee retention and morale. And past history shows that actually improves the bottom line of the company, which is the profit. And I don't know if you realized if company have a bad safety record, the insurance cost for the company actually is very, very high. So not only now we have a safer with a safe practice, not only we have fewer injuries and less damage to, damage to the plant and the equipment, and also we have lower insurance costs as well. And I guess in safety, we always say predictable is preventable, which that will link to our process safety study and HAZOP. That's basically trying to predict and expect what's the potential hazard in the process, and we're trying to prevent that to happen. And what is HAZOP? HAZOP is actually called a Hazard and Operability Study. It is a systematic way of examine planned or existing process or operation to identify and evaluate problems that may present risks to personnel and equipment, and or prevent efficient operation. By the way, if anyone have questions or have hard time to understand my English, just stop me, and I don't mind to repeat or explain. The advantage about the HAZOP is it's very systematic and structured, and it avoid items being overlooked. And also the process is also reviewed by a multidisciplinary team with many years of experience. So it's coming from all aspects to see what happens through the process and how safe the process is. And it is a brainstorming process as well. Here are the key terminologies that when we talk about the HAZOP or process safety. Number one is HAZOP, which is the hazard and operability study, and we're going to talk about that later in detail. EPA, I think most people know, it's an Environmental Protection Agency, and OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And the PHA, probably we heard a lot about it, it's a process hazard analysis. HAZOP is a type of PHA. So HAZOP is one way to do the process hazard analysis. And the PSM is a process safety management, which is required by the OSHA. And we'll talk about that later. And RMP is Risk Management Program. It's required by EPA. We're going to talk that later as well. And CFR is Code of Federal Regulations. Now we're going to talk about how HAZOP originated. I guess we all worked at this engineering company. We all have heard about HAZOP and understand it's a key milestone item on our schedule. For any process we designed without a proper HAZOP, we close out all the items, we actually are not allowed to do any procurement. So basically, it's a key item we have to do in order to make the project keep on going and to completion. And why it's become such a requirement, and it is because one of the big explosion happened in 1974. It's Philippsburg explosion. Happened in United Kingdom, and basically what happened is this explosion leveled the entire plant, facility, and administration office. The good thing is it's happened on the weekend, so the administration office is empty, and the fire lasted for 3 days. And at the peak of the fire, there are actually 250 firemen actively working on put out the fire. And the last fire actually extinguished 12 days later. That's basically happened at a storage vessel. At the end, it just allowed to burn off under the controlled condition. And the damage to this for this explosion is 28 people are killed, and 36 are injured. 53 reported off-site injury as well. And 1,821 nearby homes were damaged. 167 shops and factory damaged as well. The loss was 66 million. Which is equivalent to 200 million at the present value. But this is what I find in one of the literature, and actually in one of the table that in later part of this said 400 million. So I guess I'm not sure if this number is actually from I guess a British article, the euro and the US dollar rate. It's almost 1 to 2. But they did use the dollar sign, so I just left it there. And this is one of the famous pictures. That's what happened to the Philippsburg. And actually, this I think this picture was one of the was on the cover of one of the books, some chemical engineering book. I forgot, it was about safety or process. I'm not sure. But yeah, it is famous. And this is another view of the damage. Basically, you can see there's nothing left on the plant. Basically, it's all burned out. And actually, I think at one point I remember I read the article 2 years later they rebuilt the plant, but actually because the damage was so big and also just lost the market, and the plant never started. So, the case study about this explosion is this plant is designed to produce 70,000 tons of caprolactam per year, and it is a raw material used for nylon production. And the process used cyclohexane, which has a property similar to gasoline. When it's vaporized, when it's released to the atmosphere, it's vaporized very fast. And this process used a series of 6 gravity-fed reactors, and each reactor contains 20 tons of cyclohexane. And actually, it was found that reactor number 5 had a vertical crack, so which is a near miss. Didn't cause any trouble. Then I guess they decided to remove from the production, and in order to keep the production, they're going to place a connecting pipe before reactor number 4 and 6, so they can still have the process. I think the process actually is oxidation of cyclohexane. And however, the expansion joints in this bypass piping cracked right after it started, and leaked 40 tons of cyclohexane and formed a huge cloud. And this ignited approximately 45 seconds later by an unknown source. And the power of this explosion is equivalent to 15 tons of TNT, and we all know about the power of TNT. And so, although afterwards there are a few even bigger industry accidents, but this one, Phillicksboro, became the stock example and most infamous incident. And here is a sketch of the process. You can see there are supposedly it's supposed to be 6 gravity-fed reactors, and number 5 was removed and a bypass was placed over here. And this is the piping. Shows this is reactor number 4 and 5, and here is the pipe they placed over there. The primary causes for the accident is the bypass line installed without the safety review. And the modification to the bypass was substandard. Only limited calculation was undertaken and for the integrity of the bypass line, and there was no pressure testing and for the bypass line as well, and the support to the bypass was not adequate to prevent lateral stresses and twisting. The other problem is this plant just have an excess inventory of flammable material, which kind of inherently unsafe. It has 330,000 gallons of cyclohexane and 66,000 gallons of naphtha, and 11,000 gallons of toluene, and 26,400 gallons of benzene, which is also carcinogen. So, and also 450 gallons of gasoline. Another reason for for the huge damage is because the control room actually at that time it was designed without considering about major hazard event. Nowadays, when we design the control room, it has to be follow certain standard, make sure if there's an explosion, at least it can withstand the first shock from the explosion. So at that time, there's no such standard. So basically, everyone who worked in the control room were killed because of I guess at that time, the control room had huge windows, so people can look out at the process and see what's happening. And nowadays, I don't know if you've all been to a control room, and I guess they can all see it from the computer and see what's going on. And also, they have remote camera. If they need to see something, they can see it on the screen as well. So window is not there. And also, at that time, I think the control room roof just collapsed as well. So basically, there's no way for people to escape as well. So this table shows the major process industry incidents from 1970 to 1996. We can see here is what we just talked about, the Philippsburg in England. And over here it said the financial loss was 450 million. And if you look down, and this is not the worst. There's a worst one happened in 1984 in India, a location called Bhopal. And over here, the figure shows 2,500 deaths. And the financial loss was 350 million. But from, I guess, most literature shows was 3,800 people dead initially, and there's more afterwards. And actually financial loss, I think the actually lawsuit settlement was 470 million. And actually later on, I don't know what happened later on, they set aside $2 billion just to settle whatever the lawsuits. I don't know the aftermath. But
is that 88?
Yeah.
where,
Illinois. Is that 1988?
1988?
Yeah. Is that 835?
Yeah, 835. Again, I'm not. What?
You know where, like,
I'm not sure. I can search and find it out. So is that close to your home or something? That's why you're here so much. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess next we're going to talk about this Bhopal incident. I guess what happened there is it's related to a chemical called methyl isocyanide, which is we call it MIC. This page, I guess, I just cut off from the web page. It shows what is about basically all the health dangers to people, and it is very reactive and also extremely toxic. Can't talk. And basically, the safe limit was 0.02 ppm, which is sent on the government industrial hygienist. And there's already have damage to people at 0.4 ppm, and basically it's all the respiratory problems and the skin damage. And once it's over 21 million, it can cause all the other terrible problems. And another thing about this is it has an order. So once it's reached at about 2 to 4 parts per million or 2 to 4 ppm, I guess your eyes start burning. So that's kind of an early warning as well. So The Bhopal plant was a Union Carbide plant, and it used to produce pesticide. And Bhopal is centrally located in India. It's close to a railway system, and it's close to lake, which have a stable water supply, and also it has sufficient electricity, and it's in the city of 900,000, I think, so they have enough labor as well. That's why they decide to have it in, to set the plant at the Bhopal. And the MIC, methyl isocyanide, it's one of the intermediate compound used to produce the pesticide. I think it's called the 7. And what happened to that incident is water leaks into MIC holding tank on the night of December 22nd. And when water react with MIC, basically it goes through decomposition reaction. It's exothermic, that means release a lot of heat, and also it's release gas as well. That's why it raises the pressure in the tank. And basically the pressure becomes so high, the relief valves on the tank opened up. So 40 tons of MIC gas released to the atmosphere. And the MIC is much heavier than air, so it stays kind of low. And so it blown downstream for 8 kilometers. Basically, it killed 3,800 people instantly, and at least 15,000 dead later. And 560,000 people were injured, and actually their claim was granted. And at the end was a $470 million settlement in the lawsuit, which lasted about 7 years. It's basically the world's largest lawsuit that's all the way from India to United States. And the other problem is ongoing contamination, and if you look, there are still a lot of aftermath after injuries, and the people there were just still suffering from all kinds of prolonged diseases. And basically, this one is the worst industry accident in the history. I'm going to talk about that later. So basically, the thing about this accident, all the accident is it's preventable. It doesn't need to happen really if we have correct safety precautions in the design. Number one is, we want to design inherently safe process. The pesticide can be produced without the MIC. So that's, first of all, it's the process problem. It can produce with something much safer, like a Bayer, the German company, used the other process. But the only problem is it's more expensive. So Union Carbide decided to go to the cheaper route and use MIC instead, which is very toxic. And if there's problems, then will be a safety issue. And also the safety of the plant was compromised. The temperature and pressure gauges were not working properly, so there's no way for the people, the operator, to know what's happening. And also there's no warning system as well. And next picture shows basically what happened, and all the safety designs in the system have been compromised. Basically, MIC was stored in these 3 tanks, and tank E610 has 40 tons of MIC stored, and 611 had 15 tents, and 618 was empty. The problem is, number one is MIC should not be stored in such large amount in the plant. But the problem with Union Carbide is they build a plant, but somehow they just don't have that much of a big market of pesticide in India because people are struggling with other issues. So they end up have a lot of things, but they cannot really sell, so they store large amount of intermediate product at the job site. And also, the other thing is MIC is very reactive. It reacts with basically everything, even the pipes cause all the corrosion and everything. And that's why it comes with the water part, because the worker there is just flushing the pipeline and trying to clean out all the rust in the line. And there is supposed to be a spec blind there, but was never